You won't change by watching this. You'll change when you stop watching and start becoming. The difference between those two things, between consuming inspiration and living it, is the distance between who you are and who you're capable of being. That distance is where your life actually happens. We need to talk about what you're really doing here. You're searching for something to watch every day that will change your life. And I understand the impulse. I do. But let's be honest about what's happening. You're looking for a magic formula, a perfect arrangement of words that will finally be the thing that shifts everything. You've watched hundreds of videos like this one. You've listened to podcasts, read books, saved quotes, bookmarked articles. You've felt inspired, motivated, moved. You've had moments where something clicked, where you saw clearly what needed to happen, where you felt certain that this time would be different. And then what happened? You went back to the same patterns, the same habits, the same choices you swore you'd stop making, not because you're weak or broken or beyond hope, but because inspiration without action is just entertainment. It's just another way to feel like you're doing something while doing nothing at all. The truth is that you already know what needs to change. You know exactly what needs to happen. You know which relationships are draining you, which habits are destroying you, which fears are holding you back, which dreams you've abandoned, which version of yourself you've been hiding from. You know, you've always known. The voice inside you that whispers the truth in quiet moments, you've been hearing it your whole life. You've just gotten very good at drowning it out with noise. And watching videos like this, that's noise too. It's a softer, more seductive kind of noise, but noise nonetheless. It lets you feel like you're working on yourself while avoiding the actual work. It gives you the emotional high of transformation without the discomfort of changing anything. It's a way to stay stuck while feeling like you're moving. So why am I telling you this? Why make something for you to watch every day if watching is the problem? Because the watching isn't the point. The watching is just the trigger, the reminder, the reset button. What matters is what you do after. What matters is whether you let these words shake something loose in you, whether you let them be the thing that breaks the spell of your own comfort, whether you use them as fuel or just as feeling. Let's start with what you're actually searching for when you search for motivation. You're searching for permission, permission to want more, to demand better, to walk away from what's killing you, to step toward what scares you, to believe you're capable of something beyond what you've proven so far. You're searching for someone to tell you that it's okay to start over, to admit you've been wrong, to acknowledge you've been hiding, to confess you're not who you pretend to be. You're searching for validation that the dissatisfaction you feel isn't ungrateful or selfish or wrong, that the hunger for something different is legitimate, that you're allowed to want your life to mean something. But here's what I need you to understand. That permission doesn't come from outside. It never has. It never will. You can watch 1,000 videos, read 1,000 books, listen to 1,000 voices telling you that you're worthy and capable and deserving, and none of it will matter if you don't give yourself permission. None of it will stick if you don't decide that you're done waiting for some external force to validate your right to change. You are the authority on your own life. You are the one who gets to decide what stays and what goes. You are the one who gets to say, this isn't working anymore, and I deserve better than this, and I'm going to try something different, even if I fail. No one else can give you that power because you already have it. You've always had it. You've just been afraid to use it. And I understand the fear. Change is terrifying. It means admitting that the way you've been living hasn't been enough. It means facing the gap between what you wanted and what you actually did. It means acknowledging all the ways you've betrayed yourself, all the compromises you've made, all the small deaths of settling. It means looking at the person in the mirror and seeing not just who you are, but who you could have been if you'd been braver, more honest, more willing to suffer for what you wanted. That's a hard thing to face. So instead you watch, you consume, you fill your mind with other people's words, other people's journeys, other people's transformations. You tell yourself you're learning, preparing, getting ready. You tell yourself that when you have enough information, enough inspiration, enough clarity, then you'll be ready to act. But that day never comes, does it? Because there's always more to learn, more to understand, more to prepare for. The preparation becomes its own prison. So what does it actually mean to change your life? It doesn't mean having some massive epiphany or making some grand gesture. It doesn't mean quitting your job and moving to another country or cutting everyone out of your life or becoming a completely different person overnight. Those things might happen eventually, but they're not where change begins. Change begins in the small, unremarkable moments. It begins when you choose to get out of bed, when you don't want to, when you choose to move your body even though you'd rather stay still, when you choose to eat something that nourishes you instead of something that numbs you, when you choose to have the difficult conversation instead of avoiding it, when you choose to sit with discomfort instead of reaching for distraction, when you choose to do the thing you said you'd do even though no one would know if you didn't. These moments don't feel significant when they're happening. They don't feel like transformation. They feel like nothing. They feel like the smallest possible unit of effort, barely worth noticing. But this is where your life is built. Not in the dramatic turning points, not in the moments of crisis or clarity, but in the accumulation of these tiny decisions made over and over and over again. You want to know what changes your life? Showing up when you don't feel like it, keeping your word to yourself when it would be easier to break it, doing what you know needs to be done instead of what feels good in the moment, choosing the harder right over the easier wrong, again and again in ways that no one sees and no one celebrates and no one even notices. That's the work. That's all the work has ever been. Not the inspiration, not the motivation, not the perfect plan or the ideal circumstances. Just the willingness to act in alignment with who you want to become, even when, especially when you don't feel like it. Because feelings follow action, not the other way around. You don't wait until you feel motivated to act. You act, and then the motivation comes. You don't wait until you feel confident to try. You try, and then the confidence builds. You don't wait until you feel like a different person to make different choices. You make different choices, and then you become a different person. This is what you've been getting backwards. This is why the watching hasn't worked. You've been waiting to feel ready, waiting to feel certain, waiting to feel like the person who could pull this off. But that person doesn't exist yet. That person is created through the doing, not before it. Let's talk about the ways you lie to yourself. The stories you tell to stay comfortable, to avoid the terror of actually changing. You tell yourself you'll start when things calm down, when you have more time, when you have more money, when the circumstances are better. You tell yourself you're not ready yet. You need to learn more, plan more, prepare more. You tell yourself it's not the right time, that you'll know when it is, that you'll feel it when the moment comes. These are all lies, comfortable, reasonable sounding lies that give you permission to stay exactly where you are. The truth is that there will never be a perfect time. Things will never calm down. You will never feel completely ready. The circumstances will never be ideal. If you're waiting for certainty, for ease, for conditions that make change feel safe and manageable, you will wait forever. And maybe that's what you want. Maybe staying stuck is more comfortable than you're willing to admit. Maybe the dissatisfaction you feel is familiar enough that it's become home. Maybe the person you are right now, even if you don't like them, even if you know you're capable of more, is at least known. Change means stepping into the unknown. It means becoming someone you've never been, someone you can't fully imagine, someone whose life looks different than anything you've experienced. That's terrifying. So you use self-improvement as a way to avoid actual improvement. You watch the videos, you read the books, you listen to the podcasts, you go to the seminars, you buy the courses, you perform the rituals of growth while refusing the reality of it. You curate an identity as someone who's working on themselves, someone who's on a journey, someone who's committed to being better. And that identity feels good, it feels purposeful, it feels like progress. But you know it's not. You know the difference between learning about change and actually changing. You know the difference between feeling inspired and being transformed. You know that you've been mistaking consumption for creation, preparation for participation, intention for action. And the longer you do this, the wider the gap grows between who you say you want to be and who you actually are. The longer you do this, the harder it becomes to believe in your own capacity for change. Because every time you set an intention and don't follow through, every time you make a promise to yourself and break it, every time you see clearly what needs to happen and choose not to do it, you're teaching yourself that you can't be trusted. You're teaching yourself that your words don't mean anything, that your commitments are negotiable, that you're not capable of becoming who you want to be. This is the real cost of staying stuck. Not just the life you're not living, but the erosion of your own faith in yourself, the slow death of your self-respect, the quiet agony of knowing you're capable of more and choosing less anyway. So what do you do? How do you break this cycle? How do you move from watching to becoming? You start by telling yourself the truth, the whole truth, without softening it or justifying it or explaining it away. You look at your life, really look at it, and you name what's there, the relationships that are suffocating you, the work that's killing your soul, the habits that are destroying your body, the fears that are keeping you small, the dreams you've given up on, the person you've become by compromise and default. You look at all of it, and you stop pretending it's fine. You stop telling yourself it could be worse. You stop comparing your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel. You stop waiting for it to get bad enough to justify changing. You just look at what is, and you decide whether that's what you want, whether that's what you're willing to keep living, whether that's the story you want to tell about your life when you're looking back on it. And if the answer is no, if something in you rises up and says, not this, not anymore, not for one more day, then you act on that. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, not when you have a plan. Now, today, in this moment, you do one thing differently, one thing that moves you toward the life you actually want, instead of the life you've been settling for. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real. It just has to be a choice made from clarity instead of comfort, from honesty instead of habit, from courage instead of fear. Maybe that means having the conversation you've been avoiding. Maybe it means ending the relationship you know isn't right. Maybe it means applying for the job you don't think you're qualified for. Maybe it means starting the project you've been talking about for years. Maybe it means asking for help. Maybe it means setting a boundary. Maybe it means saying no when you've always said yes, or yes when you've always said no. Whatever it is, you know what it is. You've known for a long time. The question isn't what needs to happen. The question is whether you're willing to do it. And here's where love comes in. Real love, not the sentimental kind. The kind of love that holds you accountable because it refuses to watch you waste your life. The kind of love that tells you the truth even when it hurts. The kind of love that demands more of you because it sees what you're capable of. You need to love yourself enough to be honest with yourself, to stop letting yourself off the hook, to stop accepting excuses and explanations and justifications for staying stuck, to stop treating yourself with a permissiveness that masquerades as kindness but is actually cruelty. Because the kindest thing you can do for yourself is demand that you live up to what you're capable of. The kindest thing you can do is refuse to let yourself settle for less than the life you know you could create if you were willing to work for it. The kindest thing you can do is hold yourself to a standard that feels almost too high, that stretches you, that requires you to grow into someone you're not yet. This doesn't mean being harsh with yourself. It doesn't mean beating yourself up or hating who you are. It means caring enough about your own life to protect it from the version of you that would sabotage it. It means treating your future self with the same tenderness you'd show someone you love deeply, someone whose happiness and well-being and freedom matter more than your momentary comfort. You have to become your own parent, your own teacher, your own coach, your own friend. You have to be the voice that says, I know this is hard, and I know you're scared, and I know you don't feel ready, and we're doing it anyway because this is how we become who we need to be. You have to be the one who refuses to let you quit, who refuses to let you hide, who refuses to let you waste another day living half a life. And yes, you'll fail. You'll forget. You'll fall back into old patterns. You'll have days where you can't muster the energy or the will or the courage to do what you know needs doing. You'll break promises to yourself. You'll choose comfort over growth. You'll disappoint yourself. This is part of it. This is the process. You don't become a different person through perfection. You become a different person through the practice of returning, through starting again, through waking up after a day or a week or a month of sleepwalking and choosing once more to be awake, through recommitting to the person you're trying to become, even after you've betrayed that commitment 100 times. The difference between people who change and people who stay stuck isn't that some people never fail. It's that some people keep beginning again. They don't let failure become an identity. They don't let a bad day become a bad week, become a bad month, become a bad life. They stumble, and then they get up. They lose their way, and then they find it again. They forget, and then they remember. This is the muscle you're building, not the muscle of getting it right every time, but the muscle of coming back, of forgiving yourself and trying again, of refusing to let your mistakes define the trajectory of your life. So what happens when you actually start doing this? When you stop preparing and start acting, when you stop consuming and start creating, when you stop watching your life and start living it. At first, nothing dramatic, no fireworks, no sudden clarity, no miraculous transformation, just the quiet satisfaction of keeping a promise to yourself, just the small, steady accumulation of evidence that you're capable of more than you've been giving yourself credit for, just the slow rebuilding of trust with yourself, one choice at a time. And then gradually, things start to shift. Not all at once, not in the ways you expected, but unmistakably. You notice that you have more energy, more clarity, more presence. You notice that the things that used to overwhelm you feel manageable. You notice that you're making decisions more quickly, more confidently, because you're aligned with something deeper than circumstance or mood. You notice that you're becoming someone you respect, someone you'd want to know, someone you don't have to hide from when you're alone with your thoughts. And other people notice too, not necessarily in the ways you thought they would. They might not comment on the weight you've lost or the promotion you got or the relationship you ended, but they'll feel something different about you. They'll sense that you're more solid, more present, more real. They'll feel that you're taking up space in a way you weren't before, not aggressively, but authentically. They'll feel that you've stopped asking permission to exist, and some of them won't like it. Some of them will resist the change in you because it challenges something in them. Some of them will try to pull you back to who you were because that version of you made them more comfortable. Some of them will have to be left behind, not with anger or judgment, but with the recognition that you're on different paths now, that you're becoming incompatible with who they need you to be. This is part of the cost. Growth always costs something, always requires leaving something behind. The version of you that everyone knew, the relationships built on your smallness, the comfortable numbness of staying stuck, the fantasy of transformation without sacrifice. But what you gain is everything. You gain yourself, your own life, your own respect, the freedom that comes from living in integrity with what you know to be true, the peace that comes from not having to hide or perform or pretend, the power that comes from knowing you can trust yourself to do what you say you'll do. You gain the ability to look at yourself in the mirror without flinching, to go to sleep at night without the gnawing sense that you're wasting your life, to wake up in the morning with a sense of purpose that isn't dependent on external validation or achievement, to move through your days with the quiet confidence of someone who knows who they are and where they're going. You gain the capacity to love more fully because you're no longer so desperate to be loved that you'll betray yourself for it. You gain the capacity to give more generously because you're no longer so depleted that every interaction feels like a transaction. You gain the capacity to be present because you're no longer running from yourself. And here's what matters most. When you change, you give others permission to change. When you do your work, you make it easier for others to do theirs. When you stop hiding and start showing up as fully yourself, you create space for others to do the same. This is how transformation ripples out, not through preaching or convincing or forcing, but through example, through the quiet power of someone living in alignment with their values, their truth, their deepest knowing, through the courage it takes to be honest in a world that rewards performance, to be vulnerable in a world that rewards invulnerability, to be real in a world that rewards polish. You don't know who's watching. You don't know who needs to see that it's possible to change, to start over, to become someone new. You don't know who's waiting for permission, who's looking for evidence that transformation isn't just for other people, who's desperate to believe that they too could break free from whatever's holding them back. Your life is not just your life. Your choices are not just your choices. The way you show up in the world, the integrity you bring to each day, the courage you summon to keep growing, all of it matters. All of it sends ripples into the world that you'll never see, that you'll never know about, but that are real nonetheless. This is why the work matters. Not just for you, but for everyone who's connected to you, everyone who's watching, everyone who needs to know that change is possible. You become what you needed. You become the example you were looking for. You become proof that it can be done. So here we are at the end of these words, and you have a choice to make. The same choice you've always had, the same choice you have tomorrow and the day after and every day for the rest of your life. You can close this, feel moved, feel inspired, feel like something shifted, and then go back to the same life you've been living. You can save it, bookmark it, add it to your list of things that almost changed you but didn't. You can let it be another thing you consumed without letting it consume you. Another moment of clarity that faded as soon as something easier came along. Or you can let this be the moment you stop watching and start becoming. You can let this be the crack in your armor, the thing that finally breaks through, the permission you didn't know you were waiting for. You can decide that this time will be different, Not because the message is different, but because you're ready to be different. The life you want is not going to come to you. It's not going to arrive when you're finally ready, when you've learned enough, when you've healed enough, when you've grown enough. It's not waiting for the perfect moment or the ideal circumstances or the magical burst of motivation that makes everything easy. The life you want is on the other side of the choice you make right now. The choice to act even though you're scared. The choice to try even though you might fail. The choice to begin even though you don't know how it will end. The choice to become who you're capable of being, even though you have no idea who that person is yet. You already know what to do. You've always known. The voice inside you that whispers the truth. Listen to it. The hunger for something more, something real, something worth the effort. Trust it. The version of yourself that you catch glimpses of in moments of clarity. Become it. Not someday, not when you're ready, not after you've watched this one more time or learned one more thing or prepared one more day. Now, today, in this moment, with this breath, with this choice, change your life by living it differently. Not by thinking about living it differently, but by actually living it differently. Starting right now, starting with whatever is in front of you, starting with whatever small thing you can do in this moment that moves you 1 inch closer to the person you're trying to become. That's all it takes. That's all it's ever taken. One choice made in clarity instead of comfort. One action taken from courage instead of fear. One moment of being honest with yourself about what you want and what you're willing to do to get it. You don't need this video. You don't need these words. You don't need motivation or inspiration or permission or validation. You need yourself, your own commitment, your own courage, your own willingness to stop watching your life and start living it. Everything you need is already inside you. The question is whether you're willing to use it, whether you're willing to trust yourself enough to try, whether you're willing to love yourself enough to demand more, whether you're willing to believe that your life could be different and then actually do what it takes to make it different. You are capable of more than you know. More strength, more courage, more resilience, more transformation than you've given yourself credit for. But you'll never know what you're capable of until you stop preparing and start proving it. Until you stop consuming other people's stories and start creating your own. Until you stop waiting for your life to change and start changing it yourself. This is your life. Right now, this moment, these choices. This is all you get. And it's enough. If you're willing to show up for it, if you're willing to fight for it, if you're willing to become the person it needs you to be, it's enough. So go. Not after you watch this one more time. Not after you feel ready. Not after anything. Just go. Do the thing you know needs doing. Make the choice you've been avoiding. Take the step you've been too scared to take. Start becoming who you know you're capable of being. And when you forget, because you will forget, come back. Watch this again if you need to, but only if you actually use it as fuel instead of as feeling. Only if you let it be the thing that wakes you up so you can get back to the work of living. Your life is waiting. It's been waiting. And it will keep waiting until you decide that waiting is over, that watching is over, that preparing is over, until you decide that now is the time, that you are ready enough, that this is the moment everything changes because you're finally willing to be the one who changes it. That's the invitation. That's all it's ever been. Not to watch, but to become. Not to consume, but to create. Not to wait for your life to stop, but to recognize that it already has, that it's happening right now, and that you get to decide what you do with it. So decide, and then live like you mean it.